And away we go. Okay, meeting is now in session. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence.
Let us take a moment to remember the 6 firefighters and 11 police officers that passed since our last board meeting.
Thank you. Please be seated. Okay. Let the record show that the board is here with the exception of Scott Springett. He is on an excused absence. With that said, Chief Mazulis, you've got the first presentation here.
All right, item 2 is presentation of awards and staff recognition. And I'm gonna switch up a little bit. I'll start with firefighter Tarver, because that one's a little brief, more brief. Firefighter Tarver wasn't able to make it tonight, but he joined us in August of 2018. In September of 2022, he became a paramedic. And Tyler comes from a firefighter family. His father retired from what is now Central Arizona Fire and Medical, where he grew up in Chino, and then he received his firefighter certification. And he's one of our up and comers. His uncle works here. His auntie was a previous employee, and he's been a great addition to our team. And so we're proud of him. He's going to be a hard charger.
I believe so.
Then we move on to Assistant Chief Coyle. 25 years of service. Yeah, and we did want to make note that Kirk's hitting 35 next year, so he is the senior dog in the house. But
OG.
Yeah. Chief Coyle joined us in '98 as a firefighter paramedic in August. August is a popular time for us to pick.
I think it is.
Up.
Yep.
And then in August of 2000, he was made captain. In September of 2001, we had a special detail as wildland defense coordinator, and he did countless hours of work developing a lot of the plans we still use to this day, with, response to the canyon and throughout town with wildfire mitigation. And then returned to the floor in 2002 as a captain paramedic and kept the responsibilities of wildland defense coordinator. 2007, promoted to battalion chief in July, and then acting assistant chief in April of 18 to 19, and then interim fire chief January of 19 to September of 19, and from September 19 to present, assistant chief of operations. Numerous recognitions throughout his tenure here, with Officer of the Year in 2003, Outstanding Leadership for the Nuttall Fire Shelter Deployment in 2004, Unit Citation in 2007, Customer Service Award in 2012, Officer of the Year in 2013, Unit Citation in 2013 and again in 2014, recognition from the Lake Chelan Fire and Rescue for exemplary leadership in the Wolverine Fire in 2015, 2016, Proclamation Award Honorary Rough Rider status from Teton Valley Ranch Camp, 2017, a Unit Citation, 2018, Fire Chiefs Award of Excellence, 2019, 2020, NWCG Outstanding Wildland Fire EMS Distinguished Service Award. And when he's not doing that, he Jason's a lifelong learner, and I think at least for me, he's motivated me to continue on that path. And you're never fully ready, you're never fully educated. And with that, he got Associate's Applied Science in Fire Science, Bachelor's of Science in Applied Management, Master's of Science in Leadership with an emphasis in disaster preparedness and executive fire leadership. And he's currently working on a PhD in performance psychology, his concentration being the role of applied critical thinking and how it plays into decision quality in complex environments. Say that twice.
Yeah, hard to write.
recently certified as a red team thinker and coach, and I could butcher the explanation of that. It's super cool think tank stuff that, global reach, and I appreciate it because the perspective goes beyond our borders, and, you know, we're not the only ones trying to do stuff. And so it's pretty neat. And then he went full tilt during COVID and completed an epidemiology and public health proactive from Johns Hopkins University. And, he's instructed multiple classes here over the years. Served in the Army as a combat engineer, 1987 to 1990. And within the community, he serves as the Arizona representative for the Western Fire Chiefs Association Wildland Policy Committee, Arizona Fire Chiefs Wildland Fire Committee Chair. He successfully convinced ADOT to install fencing on Midgley Bridge to reduce the suicide attempts. And he has been the operations section chief and has responded to over 81 natural and man-made disasters across the country as part of Southwest Area Incident Management Team, including 3 that happened in Sedona. So with that, I present to you
Hey, I get a pin.
another piece of accoutrement.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That's awesome.
Well, congratulations, Chief. That's, quite a resume you have there.
15 more to go.
The first 25 went by fast. Wait till the next 15. It'll be a blink of an eye. Well, congratulations to both of you guys, both Tyler and Chief Coyle. So it's good to know we have quality people amongst us. Of course, we've known that since I've been on board here. But yeah, it's a great district. Got a lot of good people.
So, and I appreciate that, and the past 6 months has been for all of us that have been around a bit, it's been a point of reflection, because, you know, you look at that list of accolades and education and give back, if you will, to the organization, and how do we capture that energy and give our new folks the tools to chase and accomplish many of the things that Jason and many of our other senior folks have accomplished. And that's kind of one of our primary missions right now, is setting up that future look. So
Maybe we can get our first aid class back on board then.
correct.
Chief Coyle teaching, head instructor.
Been a while.
This is a Band-Aid.
Okay, well, thank you guys very much. We're honored. So with that said, moving on to the next item on the agenda is executive session. Possible vote to go into executive session for personnel matters, reference updated fire chief's evaluation and new collaborative evaluation process pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A1, and legal advice for the same pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A3. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're now in executive session. Okay, we are back in open session. With that said, as discussed in executive session, the board is directed to return to staff by the 31st, our input into the chief's evaluation, so that it can be reassembled, and completed, so that for September's meeting, it will be in that packet for our review, at which time we will have an executive session for September's meeting, so that we can review, evaluate, and forward for the chief's implementation into his personal file. Okay. With that said, at that time, we will also be moving forward and having further discussions with the collaborative evaluation process. Okay. All right. So the 31st, that's the date. Next item on the agenda is our regular business. Do we have any speakers from the public?
Mr. Chair, we do not have any speakers this evening.
Okay, thank you. Our consent agenda consists of the July 18, 2023 regular meeting minutes and the July 18, 2023 executive session minutes. I move to approve the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the consent agenda is approved. Next item on the agenda is financial report and updates. For this past month, Director of Finance, Gabe Boldra. Gabe?
All right, well, good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. You have the July financial report in your packet. For July, obviously, we're in our first month of the fiscal year. You'll see, from the, report in your packet, our tax levy revenue is at $67,195. It was about $40,000 under what we projected for the month. Non-levy revenues were at $336,000, or $56,000 under what we had budgeted for the month. Both ambulance and our investment income were strong for the month of July. What really threw off that variance, we didn't have any wildland deployments through the month of July, so we didn't have any of that revenue. Advantage, as you see when we get to the expense side, is we didn't have the expenses either. And so you'll see we're under budget across all of our major categories, with the exception of communication IT coming kind of right in line with budget there. Some of those variances are due to wildland deployment. I will point out our personnel costs are under budget by about $240,000 for the month. Mainly that's due to some vacancies within positions. As far as year to date, we don't have any of that 'cause it's our first month of the year, but we did expend 9% of our budget, with 91% remaining for the next 11 months. Personnel, again, our highest cost, 87% of our total expenses for the month of July. That's followed by operational expenses at 6%. Communication at 4%, and managerial at 3%. And then finally, year over year, you'll see we ended the month with $13.1 million total cash on hand. That's an increase of just over $1.1 million from last year at the same time. Our other assets did increase from $24.9 million to $26.8 million. Big driver of that, the majority of that increase is just our investment in capital assets. And then you'll see our total liabilities remained about flat year over year. I will point out, from a finance standpoint, we're kind of in audit season, so we're beginning our audit prep. That field work is scheduled for the week of October 30th. And so we will do what we've done in past years since really the start of COVID, is a lot of the work will be done remotely. Then we'll pick 1 or 2 days on site that week to actually be on site with the audit firms, and finish up any additional field work or anything that wasn't able to be completed remotely.
Gabe, are we still utilizing board members as part of that audit process?
Yes, there'll still be, that board member interview at some point as part of that audit process, yes.
Okay.
So with that, I'll be happy to answer. Actually, the only other piece I want to add, and I know it's in Chief's report as well, is we did get the ARPA reimbursement submission completed today. Actually submitted today, I should say. We're allotted just over $1.1 million, and we submitted the request for that reimbursement amount. So.
And that reimbursement was for which? For what?
That was the $20 million the state had set aside from ARPA funds for fire districts for reimbursement on COVID-related expenses.
Okay. And that is on top of what we had accumulated as a result of canceled training that we had budgeted for and we had spent over the course of that period.
Correct. This is an addition. This is the state had appropriated $20 million of the ARPA funding they had received from the federal government specifically for fire districts. Mm-hmm. They allocated it out based on assessed value of fire districts, and that was our share.
And do you have a rough estimate on what our carryover is from our previous fiscal year into this new fiscal year?
Yeah, so unrestricted, we ended the year with about $10.3 million sitting in our total unrestricted fund balance. I should take that back, our total fund balance with the exception of capital. Mm-hmm. The board has about $2 million, that is the board restricted amount, which gives us about $8.3 million in total kind of free unrestricted funds. With this additional money coming in, Chief and I talked about it today, I'll probably bring forward something next month for the board to consider moving about 3 to 4 million out of that balance into our capital fund balance.
And so we're looking pretty much squared away for this carryover before we start receiving funding from the county. Any other questions for Gabe?
No.
Okay. With that said, then, I'll, move to approve the July 2023 finance report as stated. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the July 2023 finance report is approved. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item, the chief's report. Chief?
All right. You're gonna move to the, oh, there we go. I was just gonna bounce right into administrative updates with Heidi.
Waiting for it.
Sorry.
Quite all right.
The drum roll?
No drum roll necessary, but appreciated. So for our administrative update, you'll see some improvements to the picture of our new friend over in our picnic area. So that's been a really great place for staff to gather and have our lunches and have some of our meetings. And the projects that we've been working on with a conflict management plan, which I've mentioned at some previous board meetings. We came together as an administrative group, worked through some of old issues, just talking about why certain things tend to resurface. Communication and conflict is not new in any organization. We are definitely not unique. We'd like to think that we're unique and that we really actually wanted to address it and find a way to address it that had the full participation of the members involved in it, rather than it being a top-down piece or an external influence. And so we gathered together through multiple meetings, drafting ideas of what would help, what we'd like to see, how we'd like to shape our environment, and how we'd like to work through those relationship and business conflicts together. And came up with a plan. Kim has put onto the side there the poster that she created. We called ourselves the A-Team, with the 5 principles of the A's of conflict resolution, of acknowledging and issuing an apology, coming to an agreement, taking action, and then being accountable. And we had a little fun with it and gave ourselves some nicknames, got ourselves some swag, and made this great poster, which is hanging in my office. So do come by and see it. And we're thinking of making them into some smaller handout kind of pieces so that we can embody it and share our commitment to each other, to the organization, and honestly to ourselves, to work through conflict in a constructive way. So we're really proud of the work that we've done. I am really impressed with the team that came together to work on it. So part of that work was done out there at that picnic table, and so I'm glad that that picture made it in there too. Some other work in the administrative offices, you can kind of see sprucing up our environment with a little play on our joke of how many people does it take to install a microwave. Pretty good. So the same group is working on a communications plan, but we're calling it a study at this point because we weren't able to write a plan without full involvement of a lot more stakeholders in the district. So we started that with a survey that went out to find out what kind of issues are people having with where's a breakdown in communication, what kind of communication do people want to see, what kind of communication do they think they're missing, what kind of processes aren't clear. Got a lot of really good information on that coming back, and same themes. So whether or not it devolves into conflict, communication is at the root of everything that comes about here. So we're continuing that work, taking a little sidestep for a minute for some other priorities, but continuing that as a group to help us clear up a lot of the things that we do and make sure that people are in the loop and that feedback is closed. Working on several procedure updates, one of them being finance, so we're working with CBG to clear up some of our procedures that have changed and then that might impact the published finance policy to make sure that they're in alignment. And some other procedural updates with the administrative staff itself as job roles change. And then working with HR in collaboration, we have a few vacancies and there's some interdependence on them. So working together with HR to make sure that those job descriptions tight, that they're accurate, and that we can use them, for recruiting, which we're gonna actively be doing here soon. That's the end of my update. If you have any questions, I'd entertain them now.
Anybody have questions?
No?
I've got one, I noticed in here, and by the time we meet again, the event will have passed, the 9/11. What are we doing for that?
That would be, I'm gonna defer to the chief, he has the plan.
Okay, that's
Okay?
gonna come up a little bit later, or you wanna talk about it now?
Well, whatever your preference is.
If we could fit it elsewhere, then let's do it then. Okay, all right, we'll keep moving right along. Thank you.
Thank you.
Psych operations is next.
Anybody microphone, sir? All right, so, good evening. I would say that, you know, I was looking at certain events, and normally that has something to do with school calls we ran or something like that, but I'd say that the main significant event that's occurred, since the last board meeting, and I say significant because we've never done it before, to my knowledge here, is that, we identified, we've identified some potential impacts to the crews here at Station One based on their call volume and their consistent inability to be able to sleep at night. Based on a set of circumstances that, despite our best efforts, still remain beyond our control, they have been up multiple times every night. And, you know, it's a little bit difficult to convey that, because there's one thing when you get up when that's just what the call volume demands, and it's another thing when you know that you're going to be awakened every couple hours or every few hours to deal with the same individual in a difficult circumstance. And the conditions that they have are the latter. So, beginning in the middle of this month, or beginning of this month, and then going forward for the next 4 months, Station 6 crews and Station 1 crews are swapped. So the intent there is primarily to address the fatigue issues and to ensure that we're taking care of our people. So Station 6 sleeps through the night. Their engine does about 84% of the time. I say about, obviously I pulled up the numbers to look. So between 2100 and 0600, only 16% of the time do they receive a call in that time period. And Station 1, like I said, it was every night. So we recognized that didn't correct the problem, but it shared the workload, and it also gave the crews at Station 6 the opportunity to work at someplace with a higher degree of complexity with their calls, more frequent calls, and the opportunity to work with probationary firefighters, things that, because of the staffing at their station and because of their call volume, we don't normally task them with, because we want the probationary firefighters to have the best experience and to learn the most they can in that probationary year. So, not everyone was super excited about this.
Yeah, I could imagine.
And I will say, though, that I am convinced that the vast majority of the people in the operational members of the organization, I just say that just because that was, you know, the target audience for this, appreciated the proactive action. And those that were impacted by it directly, some handled it differently than others. I certainly don't believe that everybody that was impacted by it that was asked to, you know, carry their end of the log for a little bit longer, felt negatively about it. But it was a good opportunity to have conversations and to talk about reasons and to make sure that when we say that we're take care of people's mental health, that means more than just giving them a phone number. But that means that we're willing to take actions that maybe, that may impact my reputation as a kind, gentle human, and still do it to make sure that we're taking care of people. So that was definitely, that was the big hit for me, at least in this month. Does Lucy have anything to add to that before I move on?
No, I think for all the reasons given, and additionally, every action, everything we do, you know, we have the unexpected outcomes, and some of those have been the opportunity for some of our folks at Station 6 that to engage with the administrative staff more. They've had the capacity to, you know, work with our ladder truck, which they don't get a lot of time on, and then learn a different part of the district. But, and in addition to that, I think one of the big takeaways we didn't anticipate is we've got a couple captain's vacancies, and just the way staffing worked out, a couple of the folks that have their task books complete that are moved up to temporary captain spots, those spots were here at 1, and this all just occurred. So their first 4 months of moving up and kind of assuming that area of responsibility, they're doing it at a bit slower station so they can get used to the backside of being a captain, the human resource management, the administrative duties, the report writing and things like that. Then they can come back into the fold at a busier station with a bit more confidence, and the holes in the Swiss cheese, if you will, you know, we're trying to keep them from aligning. So, I think it's a good thing. It was, I know it's a good thing, and, you know, we're gonna do more things purposefully, you know, to hopefully help our folks.
Thanks, Chief. All right, moving on to human resources. So right now, recruitment, we have 7 immediate vacancies for firefighter. We are going to be conducting chief's interviews tomorrow and the next day for the remaining 14 candidates, those positions. So we should be establishing a list and making offers in the near term. The fire inspector, 1 position opening, external opening, and the first candidate review is set for 8/17, but it will remain open until filled. Currently, there are 4 applicants. 3 of them meet the minimum job requirements. The public safety radio technician, we talked a little bit about that last month, that we're trying something different with a headhunter, a talent acquisition specialist, I think is the kinder term. And right now, we have 2 openings, and we have 2 people that we're interviewing next week on there that they've found for us. So we'll see. The proof's in the pudding, but I'm excited about the fact that we have 2 people that we're interviewing. And then there's also, as Heidi spoke to, there is a positions that need to be defined in human resources support and then administration, and then based on those definitions and the internal interest, then it'll kind of the trickle down effect. We'll see what to do next. We'll also say that one of my priorities over the next 3 months is to look at the job descriptions. We've already started on some of this, people doing, what are they called? Work logs.
Yeah, work logs.
I forgot the first part of doing job description. But doing the people that are incumbents in the position doing work logs. So, you know, there's two ways, well, there's probably more than that, but there's kind of 2 common ways that job descriptions are created. One's like, I think that I ought to be able to do this, and that person and next door neighbors have a job that looks like this, and it's a cut and paste deal. The preferred method is that you do a work log and you identify the work being done, you identify what gaps of that work that needs to be done, and then you make sure that the essential functions are consistent with that. Takes a little bit more time, but you get something that is more representative to what's actually occurring versus the cut and paste method. So that is the method that we're employing. Chief Lukowski and Chief Baker doing that in real time as they get their feet wet with their positions. And then we're also doing it for a position in CRR, and then we'll address other positions that are necessary to ensure that we have accurate job descriptions, so that when we go out for our total compensation study in this fall, that we will make sure that we are comparing the right things, that the job is really the job being done. And that will increase the accuracy of that effort. So it's a lot of work. I find it super sexy. Probably not a lot of people do, but
He loves it. It's weird.
It is essential. It's essential to get that stuff right.
Question for you, Chief. We've been working on the job descriptions for quite a long time. And now we have a need to have them completed in the not too distant future. Realistically, are we gonna meet that deadline?
I think, if I may,
Certainly.
we have been working on job descriptions for a long time, but there are a lot of job descriptions. And so this isn't work that's been lingering. We've made substantial progress on multiple job descriptions, and it's moving through the organization. And so And then there's hiccups, you know, we have a vacancy at administration, and I had asked staff to evaluate, does that vacancy as it exists is it still relevant, or do we need to adapt it to our current environment? And so, while that job description's been complete for a while, this guy just upended it, and so added one to the pile. And so, there's been substantial work done on the job descriptions. It's just, as we trickle down into different positions and opportunities, we find, oh, this one could use a tune-up, and so.
Like the captain's JD will be updated prior to the next test, but it will not change the comparables. So that one will be deferred out past, making sure that we do our total compensation study, because, you know, the operational level ones for comparables is pretty easy. It's the other ones where it really is important that we get it right. And we're also, I think, at least Helen will appreciate this, referencing standard occupation classifications for all the JDs and the titles and everything else. So, and what that, for the rest of y'all, if you're not familiar with that, is that the Department of Labor puts out special standard occupation classifications that have numbers by them, and then they have multiple things that something is called. So we can call it whatever, but if this is fundamentally a administrative 2.3.7, then when you go out and look at comparable jobs, you're not comparing titles, you're comparing the actual work as done. And that is very helpful for making sure that you have an accurate comparison.
And that's been our struggle over the years, is a lot of the positions we had outside of operations were built around the people that were here. And they're really good at this, so that we'll put that in their job description. But then when that same individual comes to you and says, I should get paid more, and we go to compare it to the outside, that job doesn't exist outside of our organization. So dialing into these DOL codes helps us to know you're on track, you're in the realm of where you should be, or wow, we blew it, we have not been compensating you. And so that's where the work comes in, is restructuring some of our outside of operations job descriptions to align with the world. Yeah.
Of course, as it becomes more of a market that's more favorable for the employee than the employer when it comes to that sort of stuff, it's more important that we get it right, or you start bleeding talent.
Wonder if there's a numerical description for board member.
I bet there is.
Zero.
Comparable to the same.
I bet there is. And I don't know if you want to look at it, Gene. It may kind of make you feel bad when you see what some of the comparables are. So we have two retirements in this month. One is Sean Foster, who retired after the last board meeting, technically, with 20 years of service, although he was gone a little bit before that with terminal leave, with liaison leave. And then Battalion Chief Cochran, who at the end of this month, that will be his final day, with 25 years of service. And I miss Dave. We kind of grew up in the system together. As I said, fewer and fewer. We did have two resignations, and I say that, because technically that's what they are. But Mark Howard, firefighter Mark Howard, went to go do what he has a very strong skill set that he built through multiple deployments and learning how to fly helicopters and everything else to do for the federal government, to provide a service in another part of public safety, just preventing the problem from occurring in the first place.
He could not tell us what he is doing, but he could tell us who he's working for.
Yeah. So, and then little Schweezo, Jake Schweezo, who got sounds like an awesome opportunity with Boeing. So while we have lost a couple firefighters, it's not like they were going next door to work for our neighboring agencies or something else. They had some added skills that they brought to the table that they're flexing on right now. So, and telecommunications. So I don't want to bore the board with a 3-page list. I'll just tell you this. I took Bob's list of things that he's accomplished and challenges he's been facing over the last month, and I cut it by 50% and abbreviated some of it, and it still came out as 3 pages. And what struck me when I was looking at this is, and what validated all the efforts that we're putting into this, to getting Bob some help, is the range of things that Bob has to deal with go from, identifying and addressing issues with other people's equipment that is impacting our equipment, with helping PD with the fact that they are moving the office to a different place in the high school, and now their officers can't hear their radio in that spot in the high school, to, making sure that the ISDN PRI to SPT trunk conversion was accurate, that he had the right circuit details from CenturyLink, which I had to look that up just to make sure it wasn't like gibberish, and it's not. And then working on infrastructure, IP architecture for our systems to make sure that with all the different things we have that shoot things across the airwaves, that we're able to maintain our critical functions. And then while that's going on, then he has things like that, the wiring between our multiplex and radio equipment was disconnected by a newer tech for DPS at one of our remote sites. And so we didn't know why we went offline, and then come to find out the young man didn't know what he had done, or because it wasn't their equipment, he didn't think it had implication. And so you gotta leave there. And then also dealing with, the implications of Speed Connect and what their aging equipment that is, we're no longer, it happened for quite some time, been compensated for, but we'll make sure to find the right way on how to get it off there legally off our towers, but how it's creating interference for other stuff. So as I look through this list, I was reminded on how important it is to allow Bob to operate at the prevent future problems and that high level triaging of problems level, and then along the same lines, how important it is for us to get assistance in through the efforts that we're doing, so he's not taking care of, both changing our oil and, rebuilding the engine. Ooh, that was my attempt at one of those.
That was good.
All right, thanks.
Well, and what this looks like in real life is, I was at Station 4 the other day with the crew, and I left about 5:30. Bob's standing out there staring at the tower, and I said, "What's going on?" He's like, and this is when he discovered the DPS wiring mishap. He's like, and he says it so casually, "I've got to run up to Squaw to check the equipment." And what that requires him to do is drive up to the top of Copper Canyon south of Camp Verde, and then another hour on a dirt road to get to the tower. And this conversation, like I said, was happening at 5:30 in the evening. And it reminded me the importance of what we're trying to do with getting him some help.
Yeah, full support. Thanks, Chief Mazulis. That is the end of my report.
Thank you. I think, to recognize Bob, give him an official thank you for the work that he does is, we probably can't say it enough. So, if he could let him know that we're appreciative of the work he's doing. It does not go unnoticed, but we really don't know what he's doing until something goes wrong. But really, he's a one-man show right now, and it's not helping the cause, and so the need for this headhunter or this recruiter is even more so.
And I don't speak for the chief, but I think the fact that Bob knows that they'll support our efforts to get him the help he needs is, it hasn't always been that way. So him knowing that, I think, is something that at least doesn't make it get any more sleep at night, but at least it maybe helps him know that
Especially if he's a family man and he's got family at home and he's got to get home to, and maybe a sort of recognition there would go a long way. So.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's the problem I struggle with is I feel like we're past the point of recognition and just like, yeah, get me a guy. That's recognition now. And so that's why we've poured our efforts into that, because it's, hey, take a couple days off, Bob, but not Monday through Sunday, because we need radio stuff.
I was gonna say, you could suggest that if he needs, the board could go and beat up on the DPS guy.
Yeah, there you go.
But,
give me a name.
Yeah.
Well, certainly to mentor someone new, that his legacy will never be replaced. But bringing someone on who can observe, emulate, and so on, and pick up the slack a little bit, maybe is going to be quite valuable.
Fingers crossed for next week. All right.
That's the ops slide.
All right, who's next up?
Sorry.
Okay.
Right, so, changed up the way the slide looks a little bit. I'm gonna try to start adding in statistics as far as inspections and some of the key things that we do in CRR. So you can see there's been no change on the top side of it because we went ahead and started with July 1st of this year. CRR inspections are 76, which is a lot for one person. I've been here to do some, but Kirk's been kind of taking that workload and running with it. Special events, we've been with one. We did the Wet Fest with the city of Sedona on 4th of July. Investigations, one was a wildfire investigation with the Forest Service, and the other one was an assist with Verde Valley, which we also sent 2 investigators to, Kirk and Jeremy Vargas. The bottom 4 items are come from a system called the Compliance Engine, which is a service that's free to agencies to track and monitor fire life safety systems within their jurisdictions. And what that does is the third-party life safety inspectors or life safety system companies, as they do their routine inspection, testing, and maintenance, submits them into this program. And we're able to see how many of them are deficient that were submitted in the month, how many were compliant. Also, how many systems out of that 1,526 known systems are past due. And right now, we're blessed to have Lars back on alternate assignment with us, helping troubleshoot and also fine-tune some of the system itself. So he's been working closely with the Compliance Engine and going through all of the systems that we know and are able to track and tracking down proper points of contact and getting reports submitted, and also following up on inspections to say, you're past due, these are the items that need to be taken care of. Notable events, again, City of Sedona Wet Fest, we were able to take the ladder for a static display and use the flag, which was a big hit. They were excited that we were able to do that. Then the Advanced Arson Seminar, myself, Kirk Riddell, Captain Greg Eberline, and Jeremy Vargas were all able to go to Prescott for the week to attend an advanced arson seminar to maintain CEUs for all of our arson credentials, learning on incendiary explosive devices as well as incendiary, improvised incendiary devices. So things such as Molotov cocktails, other things that are common throughout the country, around the world, and what to look out for and how to investigate those fires and identify items that could potentially lead to those and a routine investigation triggering it to go to an arson or a criminal activity. And then one of the other things I'm going to change a little bit is the way that we come up with our safety message. So what I'd like to do is identify some of the trends that we're seeing in our calls and then use that as what the safety message is going to be. So this month is going to be fall prevention. From July 18th to today, we've had about 75 fall injuries, whether it's from hiking or in-home residences out on the street. So that's going to be our message this month. So again, some trips are great fun. We want everybody to enjoy Sedona, but falling down is not as much fun as staying on your feet. So, Kim? NFPA used to have a program called Remembering When, and now they've gone 2 steps to safety, which is a 16-step program. 8 are fall prevention and 8 are fire prevention for in-home situations. The key components that they are stressing for in-home falls is based off of statistics that they've researched on. So at age 65 or older, adults are twice as likely as the population at large to be killed or injured by fires. By age 75, that increases to 3 times that of the general population and to 4 times by 85. 1 in 3 older adults will experience a fall, sending an average of 1 in 17 to the emergency department each year. There's a 35% increase in invalid assists, also known as lift assists, from 2014 to 2017 and continues to grow amongst the older adult populations. So things to do to keep from falling or to prevent falls: maintain exercise so your muscles don't atrophy. A lot of times we all hurt, we don't want to go out and about, but just a simple walk around the block keeps you stable. Taking your time, move slow and steady. keep things off of your stairwells, pathways, porches, improve lighting inside and outside of your home, non-slip mats in areas that are high risk, showers, bathrooms, kitchens, placing grab bars around, knowing where your uneven surfaces are in your home, wearing sturdy, well-fitting shoes. I know we all love our flip-flops. And having a list of your current medications available. We do have File for Life available up at the front desk where you would actually list off all your medications, key significant medical history, as well as emergency contacts and doctors. So those are the 8 steps for fall prevention, and then one of them is more of a response to that when we do come to your desk or come to your office, your house, there we go, we do have the information that we need.
Lori, do we have any idea, or do we keep track of the ones that are what you call lift assist versus the person who falls on the hiking trail?
I believe we do. It's just a matter of getting the data out and pulling the CAD notes to differentiate the ones that they're different from a slip, trip, or fall, whether it's hiking or a lift assist. So there will be different information. So those were, the number that I gave were not lift assist. Those were actual falls.
I've got one question for you, Chief Booth or Chief Mazulis. I'm extremely proud of all the number of inspections and plan checks that you and your unit accomplishes. But when I look at engine company inspections, there is 0. And they're continually always a 0. How do we address that to get our members in and about occupancies?
So if I can, I've been working with Chief Baker actually on this, and one of the things that we're going to be working back into the training program is doing a company officer level inspector training. So it's been a long time, and we've had a lot of turnover, as you guys saw, with all of the, up to 5 years, and then a lot of those within the 5 years even, COVID hit, and trying to get back on our feet, and the call volume increased while we're continuing to hire firefighters. So we will be doing company training to identify what they'll be inspecting and get them back into business occupancies as that goes forth. So that number is going to stay static at a 0 for a little bit longer until we can get a robust training program. That being said, some of the things that we are also looking at implementing is taking them with us on other types of inspections to get them familiar with occupancies out in their first use, or even like the tank farm at the airport, getting them familiarized with that, taking them to fire drills or school inspections, the hospital inspections, and building up that training component and comfort level of being able to identify, is this a company level problem where the engine company can handle it at their level, or do they need to escalate it to CRR? So you will see those numbers come back, but we're working to get company level training established to get those out to all the troops and get that baseline so they understand what they're doing. And then also working with Matt a little bit on our Survey 123 app to be able to do some hip pocket training, for our military term, but basically where they can take out if they're out of business and maybe not on there, or a home where they can do a defensible space inspection. So working on a couple different projects to be able to get our guys out in the community, as well as doing inspections or more of an assessment.
Just a follow-up comment, and thank you for bringing that up, Dave. I was going to. Visiting occupancies, business occupancies especially, is a life safety factor for the firefighters who might get it there at 3 o'clock in the morning when things are going all day. And being aware of high pile stock, obstructions within the occupancy and that sort of thing. In my experience, it has saved a lot of firefighters, a lot. Just that familiarity with the business occupancies within their response area. So I applaud you for moving forward with this and so on, but it's definitely, in my estimation, is one of the very, very important things on occupancy inspections.
look forward to seeing those numbers go up. But I like the fact that they're in our realm of what we're doing now. Perhaps an inspection isn't the appropriate word. It's more of an assessment. And if that means we can get into them sooner without having the proper training, at least they can see how a place is laid out. So, I look forward to seeing how that progresses. So, good, thank you. Any other questions for Chief Luke? Okay, Chief?
Got one more slide.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're okay. No, I don't. Where did it go?
That was,
Might be later. I have the social media, so it might be later in the day.
is that the one out of place?
No, just talk.
Yeah, it's okay. We changed some things up.
Pretend to
Get to come back to more. Okay,
I'll do, an update for myself, and Chief Baker and I met today, got some stuff he wanted me to relay to.
just so we can hear you.
Oh.
For older group up here, I need to hear.
I have to turn these things up.
That's why I brought it to like the table.
There you go.
So, as far as I'm concerned, first with this picture, a couple of these pictures, that's us doing CPR in the community.
Okay.
With Sedona PD, two of our folks went over and trained the officers. The officers carry AEDs in the back of their cars, so it's a partnership that we've had. Additionally, to your, request earlier, Chairman Soto, we've already begun the revamping of community CPR here, at least trying to figure out how to redo that. There's some hoops to jump through, to improve our training center as far as American Heart's concerned, but we're on it. My new duties.
I just want you to know that I was looking forward to participate here, but we didn't have a program, and I had to go to Verde Valley, so this Saturday.
It's a common thing, for us to farm people out, and so it's something we can do in-house here in the future. So, that's what those pictures are. It's a great partnership that we've had. The picture on the right is one of the therapy dogs that our counseling service brought when they gave us, their introduction. And that's moving forward. We've had several members already seek, advice and/or counseling there. We don't know who, but, it's been a worthwhile cause, and they're also available for crisis response if we need it, for all of our members and their families too. So that's something you approved in the board that's well on its way, or in the budget last year. I've been in a meet everyone I can to learn how to do my new job, primarily the EMS component, which is a larger lift than I allowed myself to realize. So with Chief Missoula, since he's been back, I've been in his office every morning to try and figure out the stuff he hasn't told me yet, cautiously treading, but also meeting with partners, the hospitals, Guardian Air, Native Air, peers within the same position at other organizations, Cottonwood, Copper Canyon, and CAFMA next week, just to see what we're doing and also look towards improvement. We do a great job, but we can improve everything, mostly from a system standpoint, like why do we do the things we're doing? It's been a long time since I've been on the service delivery end of an EMS call without holding the radio and pointing. So also learning from our own folks who are really the experts in service delivery because they do an exemplary job, but also what might be getting in the way of their performance as far as future training, equipment, things like that. So seeking to learn, thinking from the fire hose, though it's mostly EMS. We have some new training events come in with our base station, coordination with the helicopter companies as well. Quarterly basis is what our new medical director wants to do, so we'll see how that goes. But improvement is on the way. We're already great, but just always looking towards improving, including partnering with the Alpi College in new ways. Chief Missoula, Baker, and I met with them to partner, so we're not sending one piece, so we're not sending so many of our medic students far away for medic class. They have a new program that's accredited through Yavapai College. They're already a community partner, someone we all hope to train with. That kind of the relationship just sort of fell off a little bit. So we met with the dean and several of their folks to start reintegrating into our, on this side of the hill also, because the Verde Valley historically hasn't had great participation or inclusion, if you will, from Yavapai College in some of these programs, the tech programs. They're committed to having EMT classes on this side of the hill, integrating even our instructors into their paramedic and EMT courses, which also we can use as a recruitment tool. So if our folks are teaching new EMTs, they'll see the quality of our people, we can sell our organization, and then try and grab some people. So it's just a full circle thing that we discussed with the dean. We had 2 paramedics finish medic class and go into their mentorship program. One has finished, the other one is almost finished. So that's really great, having 2 new paramedics on the floor. We also just started 2 new medics in a program in Flagstaff through Coconino Community College. They both are residents of Flagstaff, so it's a perfect fit. But 2 of our new up-and-coming medics or EMTs joined in that class, and that's starting at the end of this month. They just began. I'll jump into what Chief Baker and I are doing jointly. With the new hirings, we're revamping the firefighter orientation, like our mini academy, if you will. So that will be launching October 16th. We don't know who yet, because we're interviewing in the next couple of days. That will be a 3-week program that covers everything from EMS to wildland and everything in between, structural firefighting, but really just the return to the basics and some of our cultural norms that we want to solidify early on. There's, Baker wanted me to include that there's a revamp of all the record keeping into the electronic age. There's rooms of training records upstairs, but that is not an exaggeration, that we are now scanning with Chris Ahern daily, hundreds and hundreds of files so that we can retrieve them. We're working on an annual training plan. We hope to launch in January. It's another one of the collaborative efforts. It'll do everything from engine company inspections, post-testing, EMS training, fire training, special ops training, all integrated so there's no surprises. Captain would know months in advance what's coming their way, and then within each month, it'll be broken down into weeks, into days with lesson plans. That's one of our larger undertakings that we're working on together. That's pretty exciting. We're doing position task book reviews, especially with the testing coming up. Some of those are dated and aged, trying to just return them to what we're actually doing on the floor and on the street, so that they match and so that they're also preparatory for promotion, instead of just being a book I gotta go through to get to allow myself to test. We want them to be a training tool to launch into the position, not just prepare for the test. There's many, many more things, but I'm gonna leave it at that. One main thing I'll end with, though, is we're also actively mentoring our new battalion chiefs, which we'll have the 3rd new one in September. So we'll have 3 brand new, complete overhaul of the battalion chief rank after Chief Cochran leaves. And just meeting with them, mentoring them, actively participating in their shift life so that they're on the right path and that someone's there to help guide them, really. So, going well with Baker and I. We're gonna start meeting it's been a little up and down lately as we get used to our roles, but we're meeting every Monday from here on out so that we can check in with our collaborative projects. We go our separate ways, and then we hook up informally also, but trying to work on some of those communication things, including trying to finally get an email address that we can both receive, training@sedonafire.org, so that regardless of who's in charge of that project, we're both getting the information, and then we can triage accordingly, but the folks know how to get us. Working on it, so cool, it's exciting times.
I have a couple of questions, I guess. I don't mean to add another brick to your saddlebag, but I mean, you have a steep learning curve, no doubt about it, that you'll do well. is that, not familiar with the Arizona fire districts. Where I came from, the California Fire Chiefs Association had an EMS section north and south. Do we?
We do.
Okay. And,
It may not be within the same, there are subcommittees of the Arizona Fire Chief and Fire District Association. We fall under the Northern Arizona EMS. Chief Mazulis knows more. He just sent me the link for it. I haven't jumped in yet.
right,
So there's multiple, there's names, Northern Arizona EMS Council, and essentially that is a conduit for state grant funding, which is distributed in Northern Arizona. Names also sits on the state educational committee where, you know, we have active membership and active decision-making, position on the State Department of Health's board, you know, to raise flags if, you know, there's an issue. Recently, for example, Department of Health is changing the ground ambulance rules, and the best way it was described to me is an analytical GIS guy got a bunch of data on call volume and was told to put it into the maps. Well, the maps then generated what was considered urban, rural, and wilderness. Well, because of how the barriers and the boundaries worked, middle of nowhere, northwest of Flagstaff was labeled suburban, which practically speaking, it would have taken an hour and a half for an ambulance to get there on a good day. So I've been engaged in that because I caught it midstream and transitioning it to Buzz. But so we met with the director of Department of Health, and we being names, we met with the Department of Health, and then regionally we met with Department of Health, and then through Arizona Fire Chiefs and Arizona Fire Districts we met with Department of Health. We aligned our concerns specific to that issue. Now, the Arizona Fire Chiefs, Fire District Associations, they have an EMS component, but they kind of lean on the regional councils, names, WAMES, SAMES, to do a lot of that stuff. In addition to that, we're a member of the Arizona Ambulance Association, which is, you know, provides good content training and updates on legislation and things like that. But really that body acts as kind of our legislative voice. You know, a lot of the funding from that goes into lobbying and things like that. So to answer your question, there's a whole bunch of different bodies working on EMS.
Thank you. The other one is that I've read in Red Rock News recently about our local police department. Not that it's a new program, what have you, but it's the Citizens Law Enforcement Academy. I don't know how to mirror that for the fire service, but nevertheless, an academy at some point way out in the future is a recruitment tool. Because mom and dad have Dick and Jane, and they're now in the 7th grade or in their first year of high school and what have you, and they're maybe talking about what they'd like to be, which will change 10 times by the time they get to be employed. But nevertheless, that Citizens Academy just intrigued me. So just food for thought.
Can I add to the recruitment thing? Jordan and I actually talked, and I don't know if he let you know or not, but one thing that we've started doing is talking to the athletic teams, and going to attempt to set up boot camps for their practices every once in a while to have them come in and do tower drills or fire ground activities. So we're catching them young and hopefully sparking that bug. So there is some conversation about getting back into the schools, and, you know, even if it's for a PE class, once a quarter coming in and doing firefighter challenges with the students. So that is part of the growing plan of community outreach also, and how our sections are working together closely to try to grow recruitment.
That's a great idea. Athletic, you know, that's a great idea.
Yeah, there's one other thing that they do that Jordan and I have talked a little bit. They'll actually do a stakeholder academy. They'll put council members in board members within whatever range they want to do. They'll also take members of the public, like the newspaper reporter, put them in gear. Sometimes there's a type of live fire even. The IFF runs a very robust program, but there's step-down ones that places in Prescott do that allow people to see, and they'll also publicize those. So now your constituents can come see you do fire stuff with the kids, with the hot dogs, with the whole thing, and it creates another like new storyline throughout the community as well. So Jordan and I have started talking to people who do that. Watch out, you guys will be there. So we'll see. But the creativity is going like never before, I think, around here, trying to do that, because it's the talk of everywhere we go, is recruitment and retention, proper selection. It's the narrative of the world right now, really, every industry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Chief? All right, moving on to my stuff. I wanna go off topic and clarify something. So DC Baker, they ordered swine that was coming out on a truck from Missouri, and he can't control when that guy calls him and tells him, you gotta come get your pig in Flagstaff. So it wasn't his intention to miss the meeting, and he was uber apologetic, and I said, hey, life gets in the way of things sometimes. But this guy comes out with a truck with 50 pigs in it, and he stops 15 minutes in a parking lot, drops it off and runs. So there's no, hey, can you wait for me for a minute moment. And then I asked Gabe to leave early because of the incoming weather on I-17. Heidi had a pre-scheduled event at 7. That's why she left, for her son's band kickoff. And then Chief Coyle, his throat hurts, so he went to get some medicine. That prescription. I'm not downplaying it. It's been hurting. So, and the reason I wanted to daylight that is because this is my first meeting back with the new crew, and I didn't want you to think that I have this new plan where they just slowly dine and dash out on you.
I'm looking at Bill.
Yeah.
There.
There was no secret plan. Everybody had something. And, Dory touched on it, and so did Buzz. Just COVID's over. We're re-engaging like never before with the community, and the next few months we will have a lot we're reporting out on, because this is when the weather cools off, and this is when the city starts hammering stuff, and we start getting involved in a lot more stuff. So I'm excited about it. I dig that stuff. Specific to your question about the 9/11 ceremony, the intent is to have a brief flag ceremony and then an opportunity at the podium and at the site for those who would like to speak. I'll say a few words, and then if you or a member of the board wants to say a few words, and then I'll reach out to the mayor. And then after that, our intent is to have open the bays up and have a community pancake breakfast, and just keep it light, keep it appropriate, and keep it honorable, but also parlay it into an environment where we can just have conversations with our community, because they're not coming to the board meetings, so we got to go find them and get that picture. And flyer will be out this week. I want to touch base with you, Chairman Soto, tomorrow, and align times, because philosophically over the years we've aligned it with this event with this tower, this event with this tower, and time changes and all that, and what would appropriately represent the event and also allow for an appropriate time frame for a light breakfast. So the other thing I wanted to mention was and there'll be an email coming out tomorrow, but 1500 on August 31st, begrudgingly, Battalion Chief Cochran has agreed to a walkout ceremony. And so it is not he announced it very rapidly, or very recently, and but 2, he was on the fence for a bit about whether or not he wanted to do it. And he's a humble guy. It's not a heck with this place moment. It's just, he's like, I don't need all that stuff. And Carla actually helped out by saying, it's not for you, it's for me. And so August 31st at 1500. So with that, on to the...
It was 8:31 at what time?
1500.
Which is what in people
3 o'clock.
time?
3 o'clock.
I love that you asked.
Yeah.
I love that.
I'm sorry,
Always ask.
I've got my kids speaking military time now, so
Acronym.
Scott and Kyle do it all the time, and I'm like, what?
Just habit. It just flows off.
I have to ask, is that in the morning or in the afternoon?
Yeah. But, looking at our incident summary, as you can see, we had an uptick in July. And that was slightly surprising to me because of the weather, but, it's what it is. Sedona's been discovered. It's no secret. As a side note, I have been working with the internet company that is in the rears owing us some rents. And I did a deep dive this week and found a city in Michigan that has the same concerns. And it was some stuff in their city council meeting minutes. So I reached out to their city manager today and, initially hesitant, thinking, who's this guy calling about lawyers and contracts? And I said, I'm from Sedona. He's like, my wife and I were out there last year. What did you need? And it was just a funny segue because once he related his happy vacation and a need or a problem we both had, he was willing to help me out. So hopefully we'll make some movement. That's a total sidebar, but it just speaks to who comes to this community. They come from everywhere and they're not going to stop. So year over year, we're up quite a few calls. That's a significant jump. And I anticipate we might hit the 5,000 mark this year. We'll see. Next. That's it? Or did it? Oh, that is new. My gosh, my eyes, maybe. And then response by station, and this kind of speaks to some of the reasons, some of the justifications and reasons why we utilize Station 6 and Station 1 to swap crews. And, again, speaking to the mental health piece, the opportunity for them to see a new part of the district, to get to know another first due, to refresh on some skills with apparatus they're not familiar with. Station 6 doesn't have a water tender, doesn't have a ladder truck, and doesn't have any brush equipment. So it gave them opportunity over the next couple of months to refresh on equipment. And going back to Heidi's report, she described a survey or communication survey that I asked her to put out. And essentially what that was is the messaging that from non-operational, from support staff, is the messaging, the wage and benefits information, how you process a check request, all those things. Does everybody know how to do it? And that was the intent of the survey, is to see if the message that's coming from the support services divisions, is that communication understood by the operational folks, and can we gain more efficiencies? And so a piece to that is moving Station 6 to here. They have more of an opportunity to engage with our administrative and staff and Mike in the shop, and an opportunity to see Bob more. And so it's beneficial, and it's provided for opportunities. And as you can see, again, Station 1 has the lion's share of the calls. So next one. And then dispatch notified times, and then our turnout times have gone down another few seconds. And I don't know how you measure the Y on that. Guys are just, the calls are more during the day when they're up and about with the apparatus. I don't know, but that trending down is a positive thing. And then response times, you're sitting around the 6 minutes and some change marks, which is, again, below the national average for response time. So we're doing good. And these are measurables that, one, I watch, for budget reasons, if we need to change a staffing model or move apparatus around. And then these are numbers that Buzz can anchor into with ambulance road time. If he knows average EMS calls taking an hour and 16 minutes, and we got 10 a day, there's 10 hours. If he's planning a training event, well, I know a certain percent of the time I'm going to have to adjust my training schedule because the ambulances aren't here. And so a lot of us are using this data to best advantage, and we're going to continue to hone it. Dory's been working with our gurus, as have others, to kind of fine-tune some of the reports we can pull out of our software. So next slide. And purchase order over 12 or over 10,000, and that is the HVAC. And Buzz, what was this beauty? This was Station 3, right? I believe so. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I did not tell him I was going to ask him the question.
Yeah,
One.
yeah, but this is the season where HVAC breaks.
We had
There was multiple
we had
units
3
within
blow-ups
this
this month.
station.
That was a 3.
Forgive me.
No, I
feel
apologize, I didn't mean to put you on.
But this may be a proactive move for I think because of the price. This was the communications room to
Yes,
create
that's right.
redundancy on the server.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it only had one unit, there's a weird partition wall in there. It's brick, of course, so it's gotta stay. But, those require redundant in case one goes out and they go out a lot, especially when they're taxed in the middle of the summer, especially when it gets humid, like at home, right? That's when the condensation builds. That's what that was.
And this room was registering some alarms, and so part of our capital plan is to upgrade the systems at all of our server sites. So this one, while it wasn't in line with Bob's list, there was an opportunity to just jump it in there, so we did. The tower sites will be the challenge, because that's more wiring and some other things, but.
Travel.
Yeah, travel, and getting equipment up there and everything else, but.
Those are hard to bid.
And then lastly, we multiple appreciations from the public. I had the opportunity, Buzz and I, attended the, ribbon cutting for Ambiente Hotel, the lifestyle hotel right next to Mariposa. And, it was, Buzz has known the family a lot longer than I have, and, I've had the opportunity to meet them, and beyond it's a super amazing space that they built, they really care about this community, and they're really engaged in this community. So it was a neat event to be a part of. And getting to my point, a lot of the people in attendance had nothing but glowing things to say about their interactions with Sedona Fire members, and it was a proud moment, because everything was just this happened and it was great, and this happened and it was great. And I did get one longtime resident that asked, why isn't Station 4 replaced yet? So I said, we're working on it. And so even our community knows that there's a need. And so, but yeah, busy month. Buzz said he's in the office every morning having me tell him stuff. I forgot to tell him it. I did our EMS position for over a decade, and when it becomes embedded in your brain, sometimes you don't know what you're not communicating, if that makes sense. It's just, oh yeah, we do this, this, and this. And he's like, well, I don't know that. And so it's been fun, and I'm thankful for our relationship, because it's, when he comes in with his, and another thing, it's, I'm like, oh yeah, let me get you that password. And so, and it's good. So, that's what I have for today.
EMS is good.
Yes.
And I'm a fan. We're bringing it, but we're raising the bar.
13 years
We're
doing
making
what you're doing.
firefighters like it.
And in our social media, it's, and we're working on some things to retool that. Not retool, just improve. The kids these days have all kinds of different ideas. We should be on this. We should be doing this. Have you guys thought of a Snapchat, blah, blah, blah? I'm like, I don't know what that is. Teach me. And so. Yeah.
Okay. Any questions for the chief?
I actually do have one.
Okay.
Which may reflect my growing as a board member, but I'm looking at the responses by station.
Uh-huh.
And
I love
I
this
take
question.
in my world, if I looked at that, I would say, I need to realign my districts.
You need a balance sheet. Yeah, it
I need
doesn't.
to rebalance who's responding to what area.
So we've done that over the years, and it's due for evaluation, and in my opinion, we've kind of tapped up against the geographical barriers that we have. And for an example, Station 4 had a very concentrated area years ago. Then we bumped them all the way out to Soldiers Pass, the Ace Hardware, and they absorbed that part of Station 1's call volume. And then when Station 6 was built, we retooled, and It's super crazy. Northbound, it's better for this station, even though it's closer to Station 4, southbound, vice versa, just because of roundabouts and things. Really and truthfully, another thing we did years ago is we put 2 ambulances out of Station 1. And so they had a dual response. And that was a part-time car. And, I don't know if we're there again yet with the growth, but, it's something we're evaluating. Because,
Curious.
I knew the question was coming. And it's like the Canyon, it's a slower station, but pulling them down then means the entire canyon doesn't have resources. And we still do that when we get busier in town, but it's even in Los Angeles where it's a gridded road system, there was always that fight. Oh, this station's going to do this, how are we going to move this? Yeah,
there's a whole industry that covers standards of cover for fire departments and every expert in the world, and it's definitely something, it's been a while since we've looked.
Yeah.
The last holistic view was Station 6, because it created, you add a station in between stations, who goes where and how do they get there. Even since then, which used Google Drive Time data, the traffic pattern has changed completely. So those plans, which we work with Alarm to create different shape files, he's the smart guy with it, so that we're responding the right way with the right complement. It's all on the table always, a piece, and this isn't excuse making. I hope, the bummer is,
High education.
it'd be great to have a station all over, but we have to pay for it and move a station, and where's the land, and but being smart with the unit response part is probably more of what we could tinker with a little.
Well, and it's if we extrapolate it out and gave you the region's data, the Verde Valley's data, some of those boundary decisions were made based on ego systems, not eco, but egos. And
they're still there.
And for example, when Verde Valley's old chief would weaponize the fact that he's coming into Copper Canyon and Sedona more. Oh, you're using my stuff. So when Copper Canyon built another station, they changed the run cards to kick Verde Valley out because, we don't need you anymore. But then they also kicked us out of calls to the highway, which all day long, Station 3 can beat their engine from the jail to the call on the highway. But some of those changes were made based on ego systems. And so now when Danny Johnson and I sit down with Nate at Copper Canyon, and we did last week, we're like, what gives, man? So Buzz goes to alarm room now frequently, and they're working on the run card committee to unwind a lot of that stuff. And it's infuriating.
One great piece could be that Station 1 might go, just arbitrarily, further east, then a neighbor might handle the call behind them, because once we move someone who handles that, that's a little more difficult for us, because there's a lot of land around us that doesn't have fire department response to. So it's all on the table. It's the dilemma, right?
Thank you. Yeah.
I like the fact that, you're considering, you're doing that swap. For some of us here at the table, what have you, we took pride in being able to stand our turnouts up in the corner. They got so dirty. We also took pride in being exhausted, being the busiest station and so on and so forth.
And I want to be clear, I would argue that 99.99% of our employees are full of pride and want to do a good job. But there's also culture too, and we fought for years between labor and management to establish our culture. And one of those cultural pieces is we have a station bidding policy, and it was to highlight the fact that seniority means something, and guys will maneuver. It is almost as good as a game show to watch when we have an open seat to see who's trying to outwit the other person to get that spot. And so we upset the apple cart, and hey, you're bidded, but sorry. So it was interesting, and it'll be good. And Kim reminded me, you all have in front of you, I believe Mr. Soto initiated this idea, but you all have the SFD coffee cup. And with the work, oh, you'll get one. $5. And then Matt sourced us, SFD golf balls, and, I don't know which brand's good, so we got a mid-level ball, and just the thought is, again, recruitment, retention, getting our stuff out there, and, I didn't know till I became chief that the thing in this world is everybody wants to do a golf tournament with you. And so I'm like, we need something for the golf tournaments. And it was a very inexpensive way to get our brand out there. And then the mugs, who doesn't like a hot cup of something when it's cold? And it's just something that we can, and it's kind of psychological too. If we have some outside agency partners come in to help us with a captain's test, we gift them a mug, and inadvertently they're advertising for us at their agency.
That's right.
So we are working, and Kim is an evil genius, and she's like, what about this? And what about this? And so.
Worth it in so many ways.
And we're seeing the swirl start to spin, and folks that don't normally come up with ideas are coming up with some pretty unique ideas. So it's kind of fun. See where it goes. Nobody in this room.
Okay.
Yeah. Kim.
I could truly understand the, apple cart being upset, moves that you made. One of the things that worked years ago for that other department on the West Coast was having an EMT ambulance that picked up the lower level calls that were designed to, you essentially had two ambulances in quarters, and the company that takes the hit now becomes the engine company, because now they're running with either one of the two. But it also honors that tried and true seniority system of, hey, they're at sixes for a reason. These are all the senior members are all over there, perhaps. But, yeah, there is more than one way to skin that cat and keep everybody happy. But I think what you're doing and getting the players to the table to talk about it, and ultimately it's going to be your decision to make how it's going to be staffed, is to be seen. And whether this is a good move or not, I'm sure you'll hear from the members in their own special way.
Yeah,
but that's part of being why you're who you are.
Hey, the perfect steak, the first steak I cooked wasn't perfect, but now I make a darn good steak. So, it'll take time.
Yeah, nobody sounded the alarm being overworked, and also the folks at the slower stations aren't villains either.
Okay.
They're just at a slower station. So.
How lucky we are to have a job like this.
We used to have a station where I believe they tried to throw dirt into the station thinking we were just being buried there. It was that slow. So, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, Chief, for your report. 2 items left on the agenda. One is, discussion possible action, review of the Sedona Fire District Fire Board Handbook, where we can make corrections, edits, or changes. And I don't know if the board has had an opportunity to review the handbook that we have, which is only done in August. Our August agenda got full real quick, so we bumped it back. I should say July. It got bumped back to this month. So, is there any changes that anybody noticed that we can forward to Kim for updates in the handbook? Janet.
I noticed it was, let me go get it.
Okay. And while she's getting that, Chief, the book in of itself needs to be kind of revamped. Policies in this book, I don't know if they're in there based on alphabetical, or they're definitely not by policy number, so you're going all over the place. I'd kind of like to work with Kim on revamping that, if it's, unless you have someone else who would want to do it, so that we can get that book back in order.
And Helen mentioned this as well, as just a review, and I can get with you offline, and I'd like to identify what changes the board would like, and then we can allocate staff to make those changes. Because if it's a financial specific issue, then Kim's gonna have to carry it over to Heidi's office and talk to Gabe do it. So I would, my point is, I would like to identify the concerns you have and then assign appropriately so that we cut out the middle person.
Okay.
And not have and then we can have somebody run point, but, being policy and procedure, probably something we'd task Heidi to help with.
Got it. So Janet identified one change, two changes.
On the voting, policy, it has, every board member who was in board chambers, within board chambers, that's my specific, want to change that to, just in attendance, because we have the Zoom now, we have the telephonic calls, they're not always in chambers, they're still attending the meeting, but they're not here physically. So we have to change that wording, so it,
Issue with that?
So, yeah, is there a legal, that would be fine to do? Okay. So in attendance,
Words matter, I've learned, and I didn't know if that was a statutory word you had to use, and chamber encompassed.
on the, thumb drive that you gave, it's in section 3 on page 10. And then the other thing that I would like, and I talked to Dave, he would like it as well, and I'm sure Helen and Jean would also, the board policies. If we could have a table of contents with the board policies listed, and then the board policies put in order for us, so we don't have to go through them all and do it,
find the one you're looking
because it gets confusing. And Dave and I talk, and we really like having them by policy number,
for reference.
for reference, right, so you like that too. So if we could do that, that would be fantastic.
So would the board's preference be to, are you paper copy people?
Yes, I am.
Okay, because we could, as we work through this, we could align it in a PDF to where you click on the table of contents, goes right to that policy. We could do both, it's not hard, so.
I think what we have right now is we have two hard copy books that are different, and we have a thumb drive that is
Also different.
also different. So the ability to have a single document is what we're looking for. So
We've been talking to staff.
A single document, though, that has those changes.
yeah, that's been organized in a sense that makes sense.
No, I appreciate the concern.
I think there'd be a consensus of the board to move forward with that.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so that would suffice for that. That would be the action, a consensus on doing that. And then the last thing on the agenda is board member items, discussions for board members fired district-related activities since the last board meeting. And Jean, we'll start with you on the left.
I don't have anything.
Okay. Janet?
I don't either, except for
Okay.
doing all of the.
And I'll switch on over to Helen.
Basically the same old, signing checks and, stopping in with questions and doing that, but, then the one-on-one with the chief.
Okay, and then lastly, mine was also one-on-one with the chief. We talked about a lot of things. Especially, we focused on the collaborative, evaluation process. But, really, things are moving along, and we're starting to see the impact already that you and Chief Baker are having in that. You're identifying those things that got put back on the back burner and bringing them back forward with a lot of enthusiasm, which you may have had at the very beginning, and that was starting to be a heavy load when you crossed over to this seat. So, we're seeing that, and we're seeing a very positive vibe, if you will, coming this way. So, keep up the good work. Keep up the good work with the community risk reduction and the new things that you're bringing on board. And we will continue to discuss that on our one-on-ones as we see them coming across.
And I appreciate that, and when I reached out of my comfort zone and tested for another agency a couple of years ago, it had nothing to do with wanting to leave SFD. It's just, I needed a challenge because my eyes had blurred to the duties as assigned, and and it's just culturally, it's working. I don't need to, nobody's telling me something's messed up, but I'm just gonna keep plugging away, and I'm so excited to have Buzz and Jordan in there, because there are some new ideas, but it's a lot of fresh perspective on old ideas. Some of the things that Buzz and Jordan are changing are things that they developed years ago and implemented, and they're going in and seeing some of their products and revisiting and changing what, I remember 10 years ago, they're like, this is the way we need to do it, and now they're saying, we should change this, and it's fun because they developed it.
Here. No, I understood, yeah. So keep up the good work all the way across the board, from the person at the top to the new recruit at the bottom. And we're looking forward to the new firefighters coming on board.
You are.
Yeah. Anyway, with that said, Chief Booth, anything for us? Anything else? Bill? Just want to
thank Kim for help on the handbook.
Okay, yeah,
I almost drove her crazy with my changes. Appreciate you doing it.
got it.
Oh, she's there.
Okay. All right, well, that brings an end or a conclusion to our meeting. So this meeting is now completed, adjourned. Thank you.
I somehow